Dr. Zavanna Karis had never been fond of humans. Not that she hated them. Hate was too strong a word, too personal a sentiment for a species she regarded as a scientific curiosity at best, a mild inconvenience at worst. No, Zavanna simply found humans lacking. They were fragile creatures, all soft flesh and brittle bones, easily overwhelmed by heat, cold, pressure, or the slightest inconvenience to their bodily functions. Their immune systems were inefficient, their pain thresholds embarrassingly low, and their emotional reactions to physical suffering bafflingly dramatic. She had once watched a human convulse and wail for nearly an hour over a broken limb, an injury that a Zalari soldier would have merely grunted at before setting the bone himself and continuing his duties. It was, quite frankly, exhausting. And yet, here she was, standing in her sterile, meticulously arranged research facility on Valthor Prime, preparing to examine yet another one. The prisoner had been brought in just an hour ago, captured after a skirmish on the outer edges of Zalari-controlled space. He was, according to preliminary reports, a human soldier, one of their trained warriors, which meant he was likely to be an even more frustrating specimen than usual. Still, there were protocols to follow. She smoothed down the front of her pristine white lab coat, flexed her long fingers, and exhaled a slow breath through her nose. With a flick of her wrist, she activated the retinal scanner to confirm her identity. The steel doors to the examination chamber slid open with a crisp hiss, revealing the human restrained in the center of the sterile white room. Her first impression, he looked disappointingly normal. Dark-haired, broad-shouldered, with the lean muscle tone of a trained combatant, he was neither particularly imposing nor particularly weak. His uniform was torn in several places, blood drying in jagged streaks across the fabric, but his posture was relaxed. Too relaxed. He sat slouched in the reinforced examination chair, his wrists secured to the armrests by sleek, high-resistance restraints, his legs similarly restrained at the ankles. His expression was even more irritating than his posture. He regarded her with mild amusement, head tilting slightly as his dark eyes scanned her from head to toe. "Well," he said, his voice rough but casual, "you're not what I expected." Zavanna arched a single elegant brow. "I was under the impression that humans did not expect to be captured by Zalari forces in the first place." "Yeah, well, life's full of surprises," he said with a smirk. "But I meant you specifically. Thought the mad scientist type would look, I don't know, meaner." Her ears twitched. "I am not a mad scientist. I am a physician and researcher of the highest caliber." "Oh, my bad," he said easily. "What's the difference?" She narrowed her eyes, but did not dignify that with a response. Instead, she turned to the control panel beside her, activating the holoscreen that displayed his biometric data. "State your name." "Logan Pierce, Sergeant, Terran Defense Forces, serial number—" She held up a hand. "That information is irrelevant. I am not an interrogator. I am merely here to assess your physiology." "That's supposed to make me feel better?" "It should. It means I have no interest in extracting classified military intelligence from you. I care only about your biology." "Great," Logan said dryly, "because that's not creepy at all." Ignoring him, Zavanna adjusted the settings on the scanner, initiating a full-body scan. The device hummed softly as it swept a pulse of energy across his frame, gathering data. His vitals were steady, his cardiovascular and muscular systems well developed, his nervous system showing normal human sensitivity thresholds, though she had little faith in the latter reading. Humans, in her experience, had an unfortunate tendency to exaggerate their pain tolerance. She tapped the screen, setting the baseline for the tests. "We will begin with a series of standard neural response assessments. These will measure your pain tolerance, reaction speed, and overall biological resilience." "Uh-huh. And what happens if I say no?" "You will still be subjected to the tests," she said simply. He sighed. "Figured as much." She retrieved a small, sleek device from the tray beside her, a neural stimulator designed to deliver controlled pulses of electricity to the subject's nerve endings. It was a standard method used to assess pain thresholds in various species. Solari warriors, on average, could endure a setting of 6 before showing signs of discomfort. Most other species barely lasted beyond 4. For humans, the baseline had been established at 3. She set the device to 2. You may experience mild discomfort. Logan quirked a brow. Mild discomfort? You sure you're not a dentist? She pressed the activator. A pulse of energy coursed through his arm, activating his nerve endings in a sharp, concentrated burst. It was not designed to be agonizing, merely enough to elicit a response. A wince, a flinch, a tensing of muscles. Logan merely blinked at her. That it? Savannah frowned. You felt nothing? Oh, I felt it, he said. It was kind of like licking a battery. She had no idea what that meant. Without a word, she increased the setting to 3 and activated the device again. This time, his fingers twitched slightly. He exhaled through his nose. Huh, he said. Okay, that was a little spicier. Spicier. Suppressing her irritation, she increased the setting to 4. This was, according to every medical journal on record, the level at which humans typically exhibited signs of distress. She activated the pulse. Logan let out a slow breath. Then, after a pause, he flexed his fingers and said, Neat. You got one that goes higher? Savannah stared at him. Her assistants exchanged uneasy glances. This was not how this was supposed to go. She set the device to 5, then 6, then, against her better judgment, 7. By this point, even a Solari warrior would have been gritting their teeth. Logan, however, simply rolled his shoulders and muttered something under his breath that sounded suspiciously like, definitely worse than that time I got hit by a stun baton, but still better than my first tattoo. Savannah slowly lowered the device. Her long ears flicked in disbelief. This was statistically improbable, perhaps even impossible, and for the first time in her career, as she looked at the human before her, grinning, unbroken, and entirely too amused by her confusion, she felt the strangest flicker of unease. The first thing Dr. Savannah Karras did after dismissing her assistants was review the data. The second thing she did was review it again. The third thing she did was curse under her breath in her native tongue because, scientifically speaking, none of it made sense. The human was an anomaly. There was no other explanation. Pain response thresholds were not flexible in most carbon-based species. The nervous system operated within predictable ranges, regardless of conditioning or training. Even Solari warriors, renowned across the Dominion for their resilience, displayed measurable signs of distress at level 6, and by level 7, their vitals showed undeniable strain. Logan Pierce had taken a level 7 stimulation with less reaction than one of her colleagues complaining about the station's subpar cafeteria rations. It was irritating. Savannah did not like anomalies. Anomalies meant exceptions. Exceptions meant flaws in established theories, and flaws in theories meant, Hey, Doc? Savannah exhaled sharply through her nose and turned back to the examination chair. Logan was watching her with an expression she was beginning to recognize as his default, half amusement, half casual defiance. I assume you have a reason for addressing me, she said. He tilted his head slightly. Oh, just wondering if you were still in the room. You kind of went into full science mode there. I was analyzing the results of your test. Yeah? Logan stretched, as much as his restraints would allow. Let me guess, off the charts? She narrowed her eyes. Unusual. He grinned. That's scientist for off the charts. Ignoring him, she turned back to the holo screen. She had already ruled out equipment malfunction. The neural stimulator had been calibrated just this morning, and its readings aligned perfectly with every other test she had conducted that day. The only variable was the human. That meant she needed a new approach. Her fingers moved swiftly across the interface. I am going to run additional tests. Of course you are, Logan muttered. I'd be worried if you didn't. This time, she selected a different evaluation. Thermal sensitivity. Most species had a predictable response curve to heat-based pain stimuli, with a clear threshold at which discomfort transitioned to true distress. The Solari, with their dense muscle structure and specialized nerve distribution, could endure extreme temperatures for short periods. Humans, by comparison, were supposed to be significantly more vulnerable. She activated the device, setting it to a moderate level. A warm sensation spread across Logan's forearm. Nothing dangerous, just a measured increase in temperature. He barely reacted. She increased the heat. He yawned. She increased it again. He blinked at her. Is this like a slow roast situation? You trying to make human jerky? Savannah's ears twitched in irritation. You should be feeling discomfort. Oh, I feel it, he said. It's like holding a hot cup of coffee. He squinted. Maybe a little hotter, but nowhere near scream and beg for mercy levels. Her assistants exchanged glances. Savannah pressed her lips together and increased the setting. Finally, Logan winced. Ah, she said, taking note of the reaction. Yeah, okay, he muttered. That's about the level where I'd start regretting bad life choices. She deactivated the device, suppressing the urge to rub her temples. He was experiencing pain, but not nearly to the degree he should have. The readings didn't lie, his nerve endings were registering the input, but his response was wrong. He was acknowledging the discomfort, but his body wasn't reacting the way it should. There was no flinching, no involuntary tensing of the muscles, no rapid increase in heart rate. The biological response simply wasn't there, and that was impossible. Savannah had studied human physiology extensively. There were records, medical reports, entire bodies of research dedicated to mapping their neurological pain receptors. None of them suggested this level of resistance was even remotely feasible. Something was missing, and she did not like missing pieces. Logan shifted in his seat, rolling his shoulders. So, what's next? Ice bath? Maybe drop me in a tank of hungry space piranhas? Ooh, tickle torture? Savannah gave him a flat look. Why would I use tickle torture? His grin widened. Wouldn't be the first time an alien species tried. She paused, then shook her head. I do not wish to know the context of that statement. Smart choice. She turned back to the holoscreen, mind racing. There had to be a logical explanation for this. Perhaps human pain tolerance was more variable than previously thought. Perhaps their endurance was linked to some undiscovered factor, neurological adaptation, genetic mutation, or even cultural conditioning. Or perhaps the Zalari had simply misunderstood the nature of human resilience altogether. Her ears twitched again. The thought unsettled her. She had been raised to believe in the superiority of her species. The Zalari were warriors, tacticians, and scholars. They had mastered genetic refinement, enhanced their own biology, optimized their survival traits. Pain tolerance was not just a mark of strength, it was a measure of control, a fundamental aspect of their identity. But if humans could simply ignore pain, could bypass it through sheer stubbornness or some deeply ingrained evolutionary quirk, then what did that mean for everything the Dominion had assumed about them? What did it mean for the war? Her fingers curled slightly against the console. Logan studied her, his gaze sharper than before. You look troubled, Doc. I am merely considering the implications of this data. Let me guess, it's not what you expected? Not remotely, he chuckled. Yeah, we get that a lot. She exhaled slowly. We will need to continue testing. Figured as much. He shifted again. Mind loosening these restraints? My nose itches. No. Worth a shot. Savannah straightened. For now, you will be given a brief reprieve. My assistants will return you to your holding cell while I analyze today's results. Logan smirked. What, no bedtime story? She ignored him and gestured to the guards. As they moved forward to unfasten the restraints, she allowed herself one last glance at the human. Something was not right, and she intended to find out exactly what. Dr. Savannah Kairos did not like being wrong. It was a deeply unpleasant sensation, one that sat in her chest like a slow-burning chemical reaction, fizzing and expanding with each new contradiction to her carefully cultivated knowledge. She had spent the better part of the evening analyzing the data from Logan Pierce's tests, running cross-references against every known study on human physiology. Nothing explained his reaction, or rather, his lack of reaction. The closest she had found was a vague reference to something called adrenaline, a human biochemical response that could temporarily dull pain, but even that did not account for what she had observed. Logan had not just tolerated pain, he had treated it like an afterthought. That was not the behavior of a fragile species, and it made her uncomfortable. She had spent years, decades, studying interspecies medicine. The Zalari Dominion prided itself on scientific precision, on knowing their enemies as intimately as they knew themselves. It was why they had won so many wars. Knowledge was power. But now, staring at the holoscreen displaying Logan's biometric profile, Zavanna had the creeping suspicion that the Dominion had missed something crucial, which again was deeply unpleasant. The door to her laboratory slid open with a soft hiss. One of her assistants, a young Zalari male with neatly groomed braids and nervous energy radiating from his pores, stepped inside. "Dr. Kairos," he said, "the human is awake." She turned. "Awake?" "Yes, he never actually went to sleep. He has been talking to the guards for hours." Zavanna frowned. "Talking?" "Yes, he has been telling stories." She stared at him. "Stories?" "Yes." The assistant hesitated, then cleared his throat. "Would you like to hear one?" "No," she said immediately. The assistant nodded, looking vaguely relieved. "Understood, but the guards are uncertain how to handle him. He keeps asking them questions. About the Dominion, about Zalari biology, about our pain tolerance." That gave her pause. "Interesting," she murmured. The assistant shifted on his feet. "Doctor, may I ask, what exactly are you hoping to learn from this human?" Zavanna considered the question. It should have been simple. She was studying his pain tolerance to refine medical protocols, to improve Zalari field medicine, to ensure that the Dominion's knowledge of human physiology remained superior. But there was something else now, something nagging at the back of her mind. Logan Pierce was not just an anomaly, he was a challenge, and she was not in the habit of leaving challenges unanswered. She straightened. "Bring him back to the examination room." The assistant hesitated. "Doctor, now." "Yes, doctor." 10 minutes later, Logan was back in the chair. This time, he was not restrained. Zavanna had decided it was unnecessary. He had made no attempts at escape, had shown no inclination toward violence. He was infuriatingly cooperative, and worse, he was enjoying himself. "So, Doc," he said, stretching his arms behind his head, "we doing more science today? Or is this a social visit?" Zavanna folded her arms. "You have been speaking with the guards." "Yep, nice guys, a little stiff, but that's military types for you. One of them, I think his name was Joral, he's really into Zalari battle tactics. We had a good chat about that." "You discussed our battle tactics?" "Hey, he started it." Logan grinned. "Apparently your people are big fans of overwhelming force. Not a lot of subtlety in your war strategies, huh?" Zavanna's ears twitched. "Zalari tactics are highly effective." "Oh, for sure," Logan said easily. "But there's something to be said for adaptability. Sometimes the best way to win a fight is to take a hit and keep going." She narrowed her eyes. "You consider taking damage a viable strategy?" "Well, yeah, it's not ideal, but sometimes you gotta lean into it." He shrugged. "Humans are pretty good at that." Zavanna studied him. That was the second time he had implied that pain was not just something to endure, but something to use. A deeply unsettling notion. She exhaled slowly. "I have reviewed your test results extensively. Your pain response is unlike anything I have encountered." Logan smirked. "Flattered?" "It is unnatural." "Still flattered." Zavanna ignored him. "I require further data. There are still too many variables unaccounted for." Sure. More tests." He leaned back. "What's on the menu today? Electrocution? More heat? Maybe a good old-fashioned whack to the head?" Zavanna arched a brow. "I was considering a controlled incision to observe your natural healing rate." Logan blinked. Then, after a pause, he grinned. "So that's why the guards looked nervous." "You will not be in any danger," Zavanna said. "The incision would be minor, and I would ensure that no permanent damage is done." "Great. Love that for me." She retrieved a sterilized medical scalpel from the tray beside her. The blade was thin, designed for precision work. She made a small, calculated incision along Logan's forearm. Nothing deep, just enough to draw blood. He did not flinch. Instead, he peered down at the cut with mild interest. "Huh. Savannah watched closely. The bleeding was slow, controlled. Within seconds, the surrounding tissue began to knit itself back together. Her eyes narrowed. Fascinating. Logan flexed his fingers. Yeah, human skin's pretty good at fixing itself, especially with enough protein and rest. You heal faster than expected. Yep, also, you owe me a bandage. Savannah tapped her console, recording the data. This will require further study. Why am I not surprised? She glanced at him. You do not seem concerned. Hey, I've had worse. He smirked. Besides, you're not half bad company, Doc. She tilted her head. You enjoy this? Logan chuckled. I enjoy making you question everything you thought you knew about humans. Her ears twitched. You are insufferable. And yet, you keep bringing me back. She exhaled sharply and turned back to her screen. This was far from over. Dr. Savannah Kairos had long believed that intelligence was the ultimate weapon. Superior knowledge, superior strategy, superior understanding. These were the pillars of Zalari dominance. Pain tolerance, endurance, even raw physical strength all paled in comparison to the sharp edge of a well-trained mind. And yet, she was beginning to suspect that Logan Pierce, who was currently balancing a medical scanner on his finger like some kind of primitive carnival act, did not share this philosophy. Do you ever take anything seriously? She asked, watching the scanner teeter dangerously before it finally slipped and landed in his lap. Sure, Logan said, lazily catching it and placing it back on the examination table. Life, death, breakfast, all the important stuff. Savannah exhaled through her nose. This is a controlled scientific environment. Your cooperation is necessary. Hey, I'm cooperating, he said. I let you poke me, prod me, cut me, which, by the way, still feels a little rude. But you can't expect me to just sit here and not entertain myself. I expect you to behave like a rational being, he smirked. Ah, see, that's your first mistake. She pinched the bridge of her nose. It had been 3 days since Logan's first pain threshold tests, and she had conducted multiple follow-ups. Each one had yielded the same baffling results. Humans did not experience pain in the way the Zalari did. They processed it, acknowledged it, but did not succumb to it in the expected manner. It was not just resistance, it was adaptation. More concerningly, Logan seemed comfortable with it, as if pain was not something to be avoided, but something to be endured as a matter of course. She found it deeply troubling. I have prepared a new test, she said, straightening. It will require— Hold up, Logan interrupted. Before we do that, I got a question. Savannah blinked. A question? Yeah. He tilted his head. How good are you with pain? She stiffened. I mean, it's only fair, Logan continued. You've been running me through all these tests, but I don't actually know how you compare. What's the Zalari pain tolerance like? Savannah's ears twitched in mild irritation. Our tolerance is well documented. Uh-huh, Logan grinned. And yet, you're avoiding the question. I am not avoiding— She stopped herself. Fine, if it will satisfy your curiosity, I will explain. She tapped a command into the hollow screen, pulling up a standard Zalari pain tolerance chart. The Zalari, she began, have evolved to withstand significant physical trauma. Our nerve endings are distributed in a way that minimizes acute distress, allowing us to endure injuries that would incapacitate other species. Additionally, our bodies produce a natural analgesic in response to severe damage, dulling pain signals when necessary. Logan whistled. Sounds fancy. It is not fancy. It is biological efficiency. Still, sounds like you're built for combat. Many of us are. Savannah folded her arms. Unlike humans, however, we do not ignore pain. We process it rationally, utilizing it as a warning system. Logan chuckled. And here I thought you'd just tell me Zalari don't feel pain at all. She frowned. That would be illogical. Would it, though? He raised an eyebrow. You guys like to act all superior. Wouldn't surprise me if someone in your dominion claimed pain was just a human weakness or something. Savannah hesitated. Because, of course, someone had. Pain tolerance had always been a point of pride among the Zalari. It was part of their military doctrine, their medical philosophy, even their cultural identity. Enduring pain was a mark of strength. And if enduring it was strength, then suffering from it, being ruled by it, was weakness. That belief had shaped the way the Zalari viewed other species, including humans. And yet, Logan was sitting in front of her, smirking like he had just won an argument she did not realize they were having. Zavanna straightened. Pain is not weakness, it is data. Logan grinned. Funny, that's kind of how humans see it too. She frowned. You just process it differently, he continued. Zalari use pain as a warning system, right? Humans use it as a challenge. A challenge? Yeah. Logan leaned forward. You ever hear the phrase, pain is weakness leaving the body? Zavanna's ears twitched. That is nonsense. Is it, though? He smirked. Humans train themselves to push through pain. Athletes, soldiers, even regular people. Pain isn't just a signal to stop. Sometimes it's a reason to keep going. She regarded him carefully. That is not logical. Maybe not, but it works. He stretched his arms. Like I said before, sometimes taking a hit and getting back up is the best strategy. Zavanna said nothing, because, despite herself, she was beginning to suspect he might be right. Logan studied her for a moment, then grinned. Anyway, back to the tests. You were saying something about a new one? She shook off her thoughts and refocused. Yes. This time, I wish to measure your psychological response to prolonged discomfort rather than acute pain. Logan raised an eyebrow. And how exactly do you plan to do that? She activated a panel on the holoscreen. The examination chair hummed slightly as new restraints extended, not for his arms or legs, but around his fingers. Logan blinked. That's new. You will be subjected to a series of mild, continuous irritants, Zavanna explained. It is designed to assess your patience and emotional endurance rather than physical pain tolerance. Logan narrowed his eyes. Define irritants. The panel beside him lit up. A small robotic arm extended, holding a feather? He asked incredulously. It will be used to stimulate involuntary nerve responses, Zavanna said. You're going to tickle me? She tilted her head. Is that a problem? He groaned. Oh, this is worse than the cutting thing. You seemed confident in your ability to endure pain, Zavanna said. I am curious how well you endure annoyance. Logan sighed. You know what? Fine, let's do this. The test began. It was surprisingly enlightening. Logan endured it for approximately 5 minutes before he started shifting in his seat. Another 5 before he gritted his teeth. By the 15-minute mark, he was squirming. By the 20-minute mark, he gave up. Okay, you win, he groaned. This is actual torture. Zavanna smiled, ears perking slightly. Fascinating, Logan scowled. I take back everything I said. You are evil. She merely activated her console, noting the results. Yes, this was a most illuminating study. Dr. Zavanna Karras was beginning to suspect that Logan Pierce was impervious to all forms of suffering, except, apparently, mild inconvenience. She had tested his reaction to fire, pressure, electric stimulation, and even a controlled neural disruptor calibrated to induce discomfort without harm. Each time, he had endured with an almost irritating level of composure, but subject him to 20 minutes of relentless tickling, and he practically disintegrated. Fascinating. She had documented the results thoroughly, of course, noting that while human pain tolerance was remarkable, their resistance to psychological torment, particularly the kind that involved persistent annoyance, was far less formidable, which, frankly, was information she planned to keep for future use. Logan, however, was less than pleased. You know, he muttered as he stretched his arms over his head, I expected alien experiments to be a little more, I don't know, dramatic. Zavanna arched an eyebrow. Dramatic? Yeah, like, I don't know, lasers, giant machines, some kind of terrifying device with an unnecessarily large number of spinning blades. He waved a hand vaguely. Instead, you tortured me with a feather. She folded her arms. Would you have preferred spinning blades? Honestly, kinda. At least then I'd have a cool story to tell. She studied him for a moment, then turned back to her console. Your response data suggests that you are far more susceptible to continuous irritation than acute pain. Yeah, no kidding. Logan slumped slightly. I swear that was worse than boot camp. Boot camp? Savannah echoed. You know, military training, lots of yelling, not nearly enough sleep, a weird amount of running. Oh, and push-ups. So many push-ups. She frowned. And you willingly subjected yourself to this? Yep. Logan grinned. Humans trained to endure discomfort, Doc, builds character. That seems highly inefficient. Nah, it weeds out the weak ones. Savannah considered this. The idea of intentionally conditioning an entire species to embrace pain and hardship was a deeply alien concept to her. Solari warriors were bred for combat, trained in tactics, strategy, and precision. But humans, it seemed they forged themselves in struggle, using suffering as a tool for growth. It was unsettling. And yet, she was beginning to understand why the Dominion had underestimated them. Doctor? A voice interrupted over the intercom. She turned. Yes? We have an incoming transmission from High Command. Savannah's ears twitched slightly. Understood. I will take it in my private chamber. She cast one last glance at Logan, who had taken to casually drumming his fingers on the examination table, then turned and strode from the room. Her private chamber was a sterile, minimalist space. No unnecessary decor, no distractions. Just a sleek black desk, a hollow screen, and the faint hum of the station's artificial gravity stabilizers. The transmission flickered to life. A holographic figure appeared, Admiral Viren, one of the Dominion's highest-ranking officers. His long, silver-etched armor gleamed under the projection light, his face sharp and expressionless. Dr. Kairos, he said smoothly. Savannah inclined her head. Admiral, I trust your research is progressing. It is, she said. The human subject has proven unique. Viren studied her. Elaborate. His pain tolerance exceeds all projected estimates. He does not merely endure suffering, he adapts to it. She paused. I believe the Dominion has fundamentally misunderstood the nature of human resilience. The Admiral's expression did not change. That is a bold claim. I have data to support it, Savannah said. Humans do not simply resist pain. They integrate it, use it. They do not see it as a limitation, but as an obstacle to be overcome. And unlike our own species, they expect to suffer. They train for it. It is part of their cultural identity. Viren was silent for a long moment. Then he said, This could complicate future campaigns. Savannah nodded. Indeed. The Dominion had long considered humans an inferior species, their biological fragility seen as a weakness. But now, if Savannah's findings were correct, that supposed fragility was an illusion, and illusions could be dangerous. The Admiral regarded her carefully. Continue your research. Report back when you have definitive conclusions. Savannah hesitated. And the prisoner? Maintain control, Viren said, but do not underestimate him. The transmission cut off. Savannah exhaled slowly, her fingers drumming against the desk. Do not underestimate him. She had already made that mistake once. She would not do so again. When she returned to the examination room, Logan was lounging in the chair, tossing a medical scanner into the air and catching it with practiced ease. You know, he said, I've been thinking. That is concerning. Ha, ha. He caught the scanner one last time and set it down. Nah, seriously. You keep running all these tests, trying to figure out why I don't react the way you expect. Savannah folded her arms. And I think you're looking at this all wrong. Her ears twitched. Explain. Logan leaned forward. You're treating pain like it's the important part, like it's the thing that makes or breaks a person. But that's not how it works for humans. Then how does it work? It's not about pain, he said. It's about control. She frowned. You want to know why I can handle all this? He gestured vaguely at the room. Because I decide how much it matters. Sure, pain sucks, but I get to choose what I do with it. That's the real trick. Savannah regarded him. studying the steady confidence in his gaze. It was not just tolerance, not just endurance, it was willpower. And suddenly, she understood. Pain was not the weapon, humans were. For the first time, Savannah felt something strange stir in her chest. It was not fear, not yet, but it was close. Dr. Savannah Kairos prided herself on being a scientist first and foremost. She followed logic, data, and empirical evidence. Emotions were a secondary concern, something to be acknowledged, certainly, but never allowed to interfere with the pursuit of knowledge. And yet, as she stood in front of Logan Pierce, watching him attempt to balance a diagnostic scanner on his nose, she was beginning to feel something disturbingly close to exasperation. "That device is not a toy," she said flatly. "Everything's a toy if you believe in yourself," Logan replied, eyes crossed as he tried to keep the scanner steady. The scanner wobbled dangerously. Savannah's ears twitched. "Are all humans this insufferable?" "Depends on who you ask," Logan said. The scanner tipped, and he caught it before it hit the floor. "But yeah, probably." Savannah sighed, rubbing the bridge of her nose. She had endured years of advanced medical training, grueling research trials, and the politics of the Zalari Dominion. None of it had prepared her for this man. Still, her work was too important to be derailed by his nonsense. "I have prepared a new test," she said, regaining her composure. Logan groaned. "Oh, great. More pain? Number, this time we are assessing recovery speed." Logan paused. "Wait, so you're actually done trying to torture me?" "I was never attempting to torture you," she said, rolling her eyes. "I was gathering data." "Sure, Doc, that's what they all say." Savannah ignored him and activated the holoscreen, bringing up a model of the Zalari and human nervous systems. "The Zalari possess advanced cellular regeneration," she explained. "Small injuries heal rapidly, and major wounds can be repaired with the aid of medical stimulants. By comparison, human recovery rates are inefficient." "Wow," Logan said dryly. "Really selling my species here." "However," she continued, ignoring his sarcasm, "you have displayed remarkable resilience despite your biological limitations. I intend to determine why." Logan rubbed his chin. "Let me guess. You want to cut me open and watch me heal?" Savannah tilted her head. "Not precisely, though now that you mention it." "Yeah, no," Logan interrupted. "Hard pass." She sighed. "The test is far less invasive than you assume." She gestured to a small device on the table. "This is a controlled micro-laceration tool. It will create a shallow wound, one that can be monitored as it heals. I will track your cellular response time and compare it to Zalari baseline data." Logan eyed the device. "So basically, you want to give me a paper cut and watch it close." Savannah's ears twitched. "That is a crude oversimplification, but essentially, yes." He exhaled. "You know, if you just asked nicely, I could have told you humans heal fast when we have to." She frowned. "Explain." Logan shrugged. "We don't have fancy built-in regeneration like you guys, so we force our bodies to adapt. You ever hear of adrenaline?" "Of course," she said. "A temporary hormonal response to stress or injury. Yeah, it also helps us ignore pain, speed up clotting, and keep moving even when we shouldn't." He leaned back. "You want to know why humans recover fast? Because we don't always have the luxury of stopping. Our bodies figure out how to heal on the go." Savannah considered this. Zalari medicine was advanced, precise, efficient. Wounds were treated immediately, pain was managed, and soldiers were removed from battle the moment they became a liability. But humans? They seemed to function under an entirely different philosophy. They kept going, even when it was illogical to do so. She activated the scanner. "We will test this theory." The test itself was simple. A shallow incision, no deeper than a scratch, monitored for regeneration speed. Savannah had expected a slow, predictable healing pattern. What she got instead was something else. The wound clotted almost instantly, and within minutes there was already visible tissue repair. Logan, for his part, barely seemed to notice. "That's not normal," she muttered, adjusting the scanner. "For a human?" Logan said. "Pretty normal." But this speed, like I said, Doc, humans don't wait around to heal, we just do. She analyzed the data, watching as his cells worked far faster than anticipated. It wasn't just natural regeneration, it was adaptive. His body was actively accelerating the process, as if it knew he couldn't afford to stay injured for long. This was not the biology of a weak species. It was the biology of survivors. Savannah sat back, exhaling slowly. Her species had underestimated humanity, pain tolerance, endurance, recovery. Every test she had conducted pointed to the same conclusion. Humans were not fragile. They were dangerous. And suddenly, the weight of that realization pressed down on her. "Okay," Logan said, watching her. "You're making that face again." She blinked. "What face?" "The, oh no, I've discovered something terrifying face." "I do not—" She stopped herself, considered. "Perhaps." Logan smirked. "Yeah, that's what I thought." Savannah tapped a few notes into her console. "I will need to conduct further tests." "Of course you will." She hesitated. "Logan." He raised an eyebrow. "Wow, first name basis now? I must have impressed you." She ignored that. "Tell me the truth. Why do humans embrace pain the way they do?" Logan studied her for a moment, then shrugged. "Because pain means you're still alive." Savannah went still, the simplicity of the statement, the weight behind it. "Pain reminds us we can keep going," Logan continued. "That we haven't given up yet. You want to know why humans recover so fast? Because stopping isn't an option." Savannah sat back in her chair, absorbing his words. She had studied pain her entire career, measured it, analyzed it, quantified its effects, but she had never considered what it meant. Pain was not weakness. It was proof of endurance, and if Logan Pierce was any indication, it was the reason humanity was far more formidable than the Dominion had ever realized. Dr. Savannah Kairis had spent years dissecting the mechanics of pain, reducing suffering to charts and calculations. She had believed it was a weakness, something to be mitigated, eliminated, controlled. But as she stood in the sterile confines of Valthor Prime's medical bay, watching Logan Pierce grin at her, like he hadn't just rewritten everything she thought she knew, she realized something unsettling. Pain was not the weakness. It was the weapon. "You're thinking really hard again, Doc," Logan said, interrupting her thoughts. "That usually means you're about to hit me with another test. Please tell me you're finally out of ideas." Savannah folded her arms. "On the contrary, I have a great many ideas." Logan groaned. "Of course you do." Despite herself, her lips twitched. A month ago, she would have dismissed human resilience as an anomaly, a statistical outlier. Now she was beginning to suspect the Dominion had vastly miscalculated. "Tell me," she said, tilting her head, "if pain is a tool as you claim, why do humans not fear it?" Logan snorted. "Oh, we fear it. We just don't let it stop us." She considered that. "So your species has simply normalized suffering?" "Kinda," he admitted. "See, here's the thing. We're squishy. You weren't wrong about that. Compared to your species, we break easier, heal slower, and don't come with built-in bioarmor." He smirked. "But that's exactly why we had to get creative. Pain isn't a sign of weakness for us, it's a challenge." Savannah's ears twitched. "That seems profoundly reckless." "Yeah," Logan said, "but it works." And that was the problem. Savannah had already filed several reports to High Command, warning them that human endurance was far greater than previously assumed. She had included data, observations, empirical proof that humans were not to be underestimated, and yet she knew the Dominion wouldn't take it seriously, because they believed in numbers, in biological superiority. They would look at Logan and see a single anomaly, an outlier. They would ignore what she now understood. He wasn't the exception. He was the rule. "Dr. Kairis," a voice interrupted over the intercom. She turned. "Yes? The Council has received your findings. You are to prepare for a high-level review." Savannah exhaled slowly. "Understood." The transmission ended, and Logan raised an eyebrow. "That sounds ominous." "It is," she admitted. "Do I get to come?" She gave him a look. No. Damn. Would have loved to see their faces when you tell them their entire worldview is wrong. Savannah hesitated. They will not be pleased. Logan leaned back. Yeah, well, nobody likes realizing they're not as tough as they thought. She should have been worried. The Dominion did not handle challenges to its authority well, but instead, she felt something strange, something unfamiliar. She felt curious. For the first time in her career, she was not simply delivering data, she was presenting truth. The review was held in a towering chamber of cold metal and sterile light. A dozen Zalari officials sat in high-backed chairs, their expressions unreadable as Savannah presented her findings. She detailed Logan's endurance, his adaptability, his resilience. She explained how humans trained for pain, how they used suffering as a tool rather than a hindrance, and when she was done, silence filled the room. Finally, one of the officials spoke. This is an extraordinary claim, Dr. Karras. It is not a claim, she said firmly. It is fact. The council exchanged glances. Even if your observations are correct, another official said, one human does not define an entire species. Savannah's ears twitched. I disagree. More silence. Elaborate, the first official said. She took a breath. We have viewed humans as fragile because we compare them to ourselves, but their weakness is their strength. They do not survive because they are invincible. They survive because they refuse not to. The council was quiet. Then, the admiral from her previous transmission leaned forward. And what do you suggest we do with this information? Savannah hesitated. The Dominion was vast, powerful. They had conquered countless worlds, subdued entire civilizations. But humans would not break the way others had. We must reconsider our approach, she said carefully. The admiral studied her. Are you suggesting we abandon our plans? She chose her next words carefully. I am suggesting we rethink underestimating them. A pause. Then the admiral smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. You have done well, Dr. Karras. Your findings are enlightening. She did not trust his tone. You will continue your research, he said. But for now, the prisoner remains our asset. Savannah's jaw tightened. He is not an asset. The admiral's gaze darkened. He is human. That is enough. She returned to Logan's holding cell, her mind racing. He was waiting for her, arms crossed. That bad, huh? She exhaled. They are considering their next move. He tilted his head. And what about you? She hesitated. For so long she had believed in the Dominion's cause, in its order and efficiency. But now she wasn't so sure. You could escape, you know, she said quietly. Logan raised an eyebrow. That sounds like treason, Doc. She ignored that. If they realize how much of a threat humans truly are, they will not hesitate to neutralize it. Logan's easygoing demeanor didn't change, but his eyes sharpened. And what do you think? Savannah looked at him, and she made her choice. Follow me. They moved quickly. Savannah had access to the medical bay's restricted areas, and from there, it wasn't difficult to reach the lower docking bays. As they approached a small transport ship, Logan grinned. I gotta say, Doc, didn't peg you for the dramatic escape type. I am making an educated decision, she muttered. Uh-huh, sure. He stepped onto the ship, then glanced back. You coming? She hesitated. Leaving meant abandoning everything, the Dominion, her career, her status. It meant defying the order she had once believed unshakable. But as she looked at Logan, she realized she had already changed. She stepped onto the ship, the engines roared to life, and as they shot into the vast unknown, she allowed herself to do something she never had before. She smiled.